everybody? Luke, do you want to come round the back? Round the back, sir. Round the back, sir. That's how it's done here. Yeah. I don't think Luke has presented here before, so he might be a little bit nervous, might be a little bit agitated or whatever, but I'm sure that you're going to give him the love, enthusiasm, and...
You're all right. Hello everyone. Are we ready?
Yeah, if you're ready, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Go.
So that's me. That wanker is me. I went to Hull University a couple of years ago now. Yeah, big time. That's what we're talking about. So yeah, I left a couple of years ago now, and I studied war, as you may be able to tell. So I'm going to talk to you about that tonight. And really, it's to be honest, it's about a bit more than that. When I left university, I sort of didn't know what I wanted to do with my course, what I wanted to do with war. It's quite a meaty subject, to be honest. There's some gristle and grit going on right there. So what I wanted to do was, and what I've realised now is that I want to do something bigger with it. And actually what a lot of universities call their war studies department is peace studies. And I've realised that's absolutely what I wanted to do. When I left university, I wanted to be an officer in the army. And I've realised I still might do that, but what I want to do is something far more expansive. By the way, I've thrown out my script, so these are pretty much irrelevant. So, yeah, what I want to talk to you about is just give you a little bit of an insight into war, because I think it's actually a really fascinating subject, because I think it's massively misrepresented in the public. I think it's something that requires a much more sensible debate, actually, because it's a serious subject, as you know, but there's so much popularism about it. There's so much... I don't know, people just get the wrong picture. For example, a lot of people think they know a lot about war. This guy, he doesn't know anything about war, I'll tell you now, and he's governing our country, making decisions on our procurement, and he'll influence foreign policy. And that's dangerous, that really is quite dangerous. So what I want to look at doing, really, is starting a movement. The name of the movement is going to be introduced later on, and I'd like all of you to be part of it, or as many of you are interested. Because I think what's important to realise is that right now we're in an unprecedented period of peace. Europe, for like 300 years before this point, before 1945, we kicked the shit out of each other. We absolutely loved it, and for 2,000 years now, that's pretty much been the pattern of human existence, is that we've pretty much routinely got together and for one reason or another, absolutely battered each other. And I think it's time that we put that to a halt. Now there's a problem in that there's a lot of determinism when it comes to international relations. A lot of the reason that we're heading towards war, and that's one thing I should probably point out to start with, is that to most people's opinion, to academics, to our nations, we are gearing up essentially for war within sort of the next 20 to 30 years, which is pretty bleak. I apologise for bringing that down on you tonight, but that is the reality. I think maps are a big problem as well, just to start with. I think the minute you put a few men in front of a map, they want to be smashing a Panzer tank for a baker in Warsaw, so that generally happens. But I think, lightness aside, I think what's important is that we start to realise that we can break this deterministic cycle. International relations theorists for a long time have said that what happens in the world is that we go through periods of peace that are dominated by hegemonic power. For example, now in that image you've got you had the map of the world, and essentially, if you imagine the Nazis, the Axis powers, they challenged the old powers, the old system, and tried to buck the trend. But then when they failed, when Britain and France were challenged and the Nazis failed, essentially what we had was that was replaced. We had a period of peace, the Cold War emerged, and now we're in another period of peace. Once that challenge has arisen, once the Cold War closed, we ended up with another period of peace. So I think what is important now is to sort of realise what we can do going forward and to break that cycle. And I think this guy actually has a lot to do with it. Thucydides, he wrote a book 2,000 years ago called The History of the Peloponnesian War. Nice little read, I tell you. He basically wrote the war was fought for three reasons: fear, honour and interest. And I think we need to look at realistically, are those things palpable anymore? Is there any real reason for one nation to fear another? We know we're in an interconnected world. Is there any real reason? The fears that we actually should have are fears about human security, things like poverty, access to resources. Those are the important things. And is war the solution in that case? Honour, you might think that's actually really archaic, but since 1945, the amount of wars that Britain has fought based on some intangible notion of prestige, I can't tell you, it's absolutely ridiculous. National interest, that's where the buck's got to stop, really. If it's not in our interest, we don't go to war. It should be as simple as that. And I think you'd struggle to prove in 20, 30 years' time that we can't find better solutions to our problems than kicking the shit out of each other anymore. So right now, this is where we sort of lighten up a little bit. As I said, I want to start this movement. I want to get people involved. I'm going to be creating a website. I want to start a forum where we can really start to engage with other people. Start in Britain and then expand it. Because I think conversation, once you have conversation and iterate that conversation, fear gets removed and people start to trust each other again. So I invite you, please, to consider and ask the question, why not peace?
Luke Taylor.